Hi everybody, Harry Platcow here. Welcome to Jazz from the Combs. I want to say thank you to the sponsor of tonight's show, the Milford Mendon Upton Town Crier. It happens twice a month, so read it. It's good news. We are extremely honored to have with us a guest. In fact, if you could hear the theme, you hear the theme?
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
That's you. That was recorded 50 years ago. Uh-oh. Your hero, I just want to reinforce something here before I formally introduce him. His hero was Nelson Mandela, and may still be Nelson Mandela, with the same reverence. Our guest tonight is my hero. Ladies and gentlemen, Donn Trenner.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Harry.
Good to see you.
Nice to see your smiling face.
This has been a long time in the making.
That's right.
You got older.
Just today. Yeah.
There's so much I want to talk to you, but I want to hear you play some tunes.
Really? Should I play now?
Yeah. From Out of Nowhere, huh? Was there another tune juxtaposed?
From Out
in
of
it?
Nowhere?
You came to me from Out of Nowhere?
No.
What
that was the Days of Wine and Roses.
Oh, I heard Out of Nowhere in there. All right. Are the chord changes similar?
No.
I could have sworn I heard Out of Nowhere in there.
Well, I can't help you with that.
There's so much to talk about.
Okay?
Let's go back to
I have
when
to be home by November, though. Remember that.
When you were a young punk living in New Haven, Connecticut, a teenager, you decided to write an arrangement for the Glenn Miller Orchestra, which was stationed in New Haven. What went into that? Did you use one of your own songs? Were you so taken with the clarinet lead? And the tune got performed, your arrangement got performed. Tell us the process by which that all that took place.
Well, that's close, but not quite. I had a friend by the name of Perry Burgett. He used to write for Skitch Henderson. He was an arranger. He was stationed up here in New Haven, and I became friendly with him. And he knew that I was teaching myself how to arrange, and I was writing at home. And he said, I'll tell you what, he said, if you write an arrangement Glenn Miller style, he said, I think I can get the Glenn Miller Orchestra to rehearse it. And I said, really? So that's what happened. I wrote an arrangement of I'm in the Mood for Love, and I wrote it the Miller style. That's That's the voicing he used. And so they played it at a rehearsal, and I was one of the thrills of my life.
I guess.
But then, as a punch-up to that, they came to my high school to do a program, and they played it in my high school. One of the thrills of my life, truly.
I guess.
I was 16 years old.
What was the song, though? Oh, I'm in the Mood for Love.
Yes,
You
very
used
good.
that. It sounded very much like something.
Yeah.
Grace us with another song.
Pardon me?
Grace us with another song.
Grace. All right.
Grace
sir.
us.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to do something, and I'll tell you about this later. This is rather important to me. I have no idea what I'm about to play, and when I finish it, I can't play it again the same way because I never can. So what's going to happen now is going to be an instantaneous composition, but I'll tell you about it later, okay? Let me tell everybody a little bit of what this is. It's been kind of a rough week. I lost a very close friend, one of the musical geniuses of the world. A lot of people may not know him, but he was on so many recordings, so many movie themes. Billy Joel, I can't remember what tune he did with him. His name was Toots Thielemans, and he was probably one of the greatest harmonica players in the world. He was a jazz harmonica player, and harmonica alone should be discussed. It's a treacherous instrument. Harmonica is really difficult. First of all, harmonica, you blow and draw. Mm-hmm. And what he did with that instrument was incredible. He died this week at 93 years old. He's from Belgium. And after I finished doing the Steve Allen show, I was appointed the musical director of a show in New York, another 5-night-a-week show called ABC Nightlife. Mm-hmm. And I had a staff ABC orchestra. I had 2 drummers that you would remember. Each week, 2 drummers. One was Don Lamond and the other was Mel Lewis, okay? My guitarist was Toots Thielemans. So I worked with him 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Then the next time I would see him was when I was honored to go to Stockholm, Sweden, and co-host Stockholm's first jazz festival. Mm-hmm. And Toots was there. And so I got to visit with him for a whole week. Anybody that has the opportunity to hear anything he did should do it. It's really important. He was amazing, truly, truly amazing.
Hence your blues.
So what I played was based on the chord structure, and this was his famous tune. Bluesette. You know the whole thing, yeah. So what I played was, same chord. So I don't know what I played, but it was based on that, and it gave me an opportunity to talk about him.
Oh, very nice.
A big loss in my life and everyone's life.
I'm glad.
He was one of the geniuses.
He was.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I can mention about 4 or 5 other ones.
Yeah.
We have Paul Desmond.
Yeah.
From the Dave Brubeck. You know. We have Oscar Peterson. I have Stan Getz, Herb Ellis. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Real geniuses.
And you too, Mr. Trenner.
Oh, come on, thank you.
Let's talk about your book. You're an author now.
That's right.
Can we get a shot of that? What possessed you to do this? How long have you been with book, as it were?
Well, if you hold the cover up again, at the bottom it says by Donn Trenner with Tim Atherton.
Okay.
Tim Atherton is a professor at music at Dartmouth and Westfield State. And when I first came back here to Connecticut, not knowing what I was going to do, I became a contractor. You know what that is?
Yeah.
I was hired by the Mohegan Sun Casino to supply orchestras when they had a contract. For an example, Frank Sinatra Jr. Would come in, they'd sign a contract with him, and the buyer, which was the Mohegan Sun, had to supply 47 musicians. Called Donn, I hired the musicians.
Right.
So it was my orchestra. And I did a lot of dates out there. One of the people I hired to play trombone was Tim Atherton. And we would rehearse in the afternoon from 2 to 5, take a break for dinner, and then do the performance. So the dinner break, we would all get together in the employees' cafeteria, and Tim Atherton sat with me. And when I first came back to town, he was asking me, just like you, the question man, he was asking me all kinds of questions about why I came back to Connecticut and what my life was like in my career, you know. And he wrote a letter to me. The letter was very impressive because it was grammatically correct, which impressed me. And he said, I believe you have a moral responsibility to share the diversity of your career with the world.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm willing to give up a year of my professorship to help you write it. Well, he didn't do that, but he came to my house so many times, and we talked into a tape recorder. We went back as far as we could. Fortunately, I have a pretty dependable memory. So we went through my life as much as we could. And then he did the chronological study and put dates together and things. And he would send me 100 pages. And I couldn't read them. I thought this was the most egotistical thing I ever heard of. I can't read about me. And so it took me 8 or 9 years after compiling 400 pages with pictures. Finally, somebody convinced me that I better take care of business and get this out. So it took almost 11 or 12 years to complete that. One of the things that bothered me is when you talk into a tape recorder, you're not very literary. You say, oh, the guys went here, and if I heard the word guys again, I was going to go crazy. So I talked to a friend of mine. My daughter's girlfriend's mother was an editor, and she came to the house, and we actually went through the book. And she said, may I send a chapter of that to my dad? And I said, sure. She said, my dad is an author, and I think he would like to read it. So she sent him a chapter, and he called her, and he said, this book must come out. He said, it's very interesting. So we got rid of all the guys did this and the guys did that, and we cleaned it up literarily, and so that's what it is now, and it came out recently, and it's my life. It's what I've done in music.
Frank.
Pardon
It's
me?
very frank. You talk about your ex-wives. You go into detail about some of the not so glamorous parts of your life.
Sure, we all have that, Harry.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. His book is selling very well, I understand.
Well, I don't know. I was a little. I'm not aware of what publishers' habits are.
Yeah.
I was surprised that they didn't send me a few books that I could give to friends. He sent me one hardback copy, and then I found out that that's all the publishers do.
Yeah.
You know, so if anybody wants the book, it's, you know, I don't have copies of it. I have to order and pay for them myself.
Yeah.
But you can get it on Amazon, and it's available in both paperback and hardback. And I recommend the hardback, not because it's more expensive, but it doesn't curl up, you know, the paperbacks do, you know.
Yeah.
And there's some wonderful pictures in there, some stories about a lot of people. You can ask me the questions, and I'll do the answers.
Sure. Well, I want to hear you play another song, though.
Okay, really? Do I know another song?
I think so. Cole Porter, you got to do a Cole Porter for me, night and day. A 1679 sharp 11.
Oh, you're too smart for me. You know, I must tell you, I'm having a little bit of a problem here, and I don't think we can fix it, but this rug is so soft and the pedal keeps going down into it, so I'm having a little, I just have to complain a little, that's all,
Oh,
you know.
no problem.
It's-
Complain away.
It's hardly sustaining. That's okay, we'll get by.
It sounds very nice.
Thank you.
Tell us about the great love of your life. You wrote about her in your book. She's still very much in your life.
BJ?
BJ.
Yeah, that was a wonderful portion and part of my life. When I was doing ABC Nightlife, my job was to call some of the performers that were going to be on the show and find out what their music was like and if I had to write any music or whatever, you know. And so I got this note to call BJ Ward. So I called her, and she was going to be on the show a week or so later, you know. And I said, do you have any charts? And she said, charts? I said, yeah, you know, arrangements for the... She said, oh, well, she kind of stuttered around a little bit. Anyhow, the day came, and there I went over to the studio, from my office over to the studio, and there she was, this tiny little girl of about maybe 95 pounds, really cute, 19 years old. And Joe Williams was there that day, and she loves to tell this story. Joe Williams came up and worked with the orchestra first, and he said, hey, man, he was saying hi to all the guys, you know, using all the hip music talk, you know. And BJ tells later that she said she didn't know what she was going to do. So she finally, it's time for me to rehearse with her. And I said, where's your music? And in her hand, she had a crumpled up piece of paper that she had been holding so long with a few chords on it. And she sang. You know the song?
Yeah. From
She was
Finian's
stunned.
Rainbow, right?
What?
From Finian's Rainbow?
No. It's from the Fantastics.
Oh, okay.
It's called Try to Remember.
Yeah.
She was starring in that show in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finished rehearsing with her, and I can't believe what I said to her. I said, could I have those 7 magic numbers? And she said, what do you mean? I said, your phone number. And so she invited me over to her apartment.
She fell for that, huh?
Yeah, she did. And she invited me over to her apartment in New York, and she had a piano there. And I said, do you play piano too? And she said, yes. And I said, can you play something for me? She said, yeah, I can play the second page of Rhapsody in Blue. And I said, where's the first page? She said, I never learned that. She's a very funny girl. Our marriage was wonderful. It came to a point where we could not coexist in marriage, but we're still very, very closely cemented together. She remarried, and she married Gordon Hunt, who is Helen Hunt's father.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not well now, but I've written music with him too. And she's very dear to me.
And you've had 2 or 3 projects with her. Over
You know,
the
we did
past
2
year.
albums last year, right?
Yeah.
And she called me this week, and it looks like we're going to do a performance in Los Angeles, perhaps in October or November.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Grace us again, Mr. Trenner.
You really, haven't you had enough?
Never.
I-
Never.
Sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble with this pedal.
Sounds good. Take a train, then.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Lawrence Welk referred to it as. You know that, don't you?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, take a train.
What was that?
Lawrence Welk, in introducing Take an A Train, called
Yeah.
it Take a Train.
Is that what you think I just played?
That was Take a Train, wasn't it?
Boy, oh boy.
Well, tell me what you played.
Satin Doll.
Oh, man. I'm not faring very well. You don't want to
Take
give
the
me
A
blank.
train is. Okay.
Yeah, it gets better as I get it.
You're getting older just since the show started.
I
you
know.
Got to be careful of that.
You were the music director for so many people over the years. We got Ann Margaret, and we got Nancy Wilson. Were you Jack Jones? Were you his musical director as well?
Mm-hmm.
Who else?
Shirley MacLaine.
Shirley MacLaine. Yeah.
Cy Coleman, a very well-known composer, and
Yeah.
I wrote Shirley MacLaine's Nightclub Act, and we were nominated for an Emmy.
Mm-hmm.
When you get nominated, you get a cardboard plaque. When you win, you get a wonderful statue.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the cardboard plaque, and it's framed.
You did. Were you conducting the orchestra on that show?
Gypsy in My Soul?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yes, I think I remember saying that.
Yeah.
Tell us that story about Shirley MacLaine and the quote that she said that caused such an international uproar.
Oh, I guess it's okay to talk about that now. Karen Quinlan, I don't know if any of you remember that name. There was a time in New York when New York was really in bad shape. Karen Quinlan was a girl that was plagued with a very serious health problem, and they were trying to keep her alive with the facilities they have to do that, you know. And a lot of people were against that. They didn't want to continue her life in such a terrible condition. Anyhow, we went to New York, and Shirley was thrilled. She had been back in New York after 20-some years, and we were at the Palace Theater, and it was a very exciting opening night. I mean, Shirley was just so excited she could hardly stand it. And at the time, she was going with Pete Hamill, who was a really well-known writer, you know. Anyhow, she walked out on stage, and you could feel the electricity in that theater. I mean, all the dignitaries that knew Shirley, they were all there, and it was great. And Shirley walked out on stage, and I remember her body was just kind of trembling. And she said, and New York had just almost gone bankrupt. And so she walked out on stage, and she said something like, "It's just wonderful to be back in New York after all these years." She said, "New York is wonderful." She said, "You can't get New York down," referring to the bankruptcy. She said, "New York is sort of like the Karen Quinlan of American cities." Oops. That caused a lot of problems.
Yeah.
She had to call the Quinlan family and apologize. From there, we went to London, and it made the London press, and she had to talk about that. It was a very serious mess. And Pete Hamill must have given her a line to say about, and she messed it up somehow, so it came out wrong. You know? And we also recorded a live album that night on RCA.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was it called?
Shirley MacLaine at the Palace Theater.
Oh, okay. I wonder.
With a huge orchestra, huge.
Are things like that still available?
Probably.
Yeah.
A clever fellow like you can find all that out on the internet.
Yeah. Well,
I can't even spell internet.
One more story before you get to play again.
Which one would you like?
Jack Benny, no, not Jack Benny, Bob Hope. You and Bob Hope walking down the street in Spokane or Eugene, Oregon.
Okay, I think I know what you're saying.
All right.
I spent a lot of time with Bob Hope. He was very important in my life. I did Christmas parties at his house where Dolores would sing. Dolores was a really good singer. I was also appointed to do a show in New York, in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center called Happy Birthday, Bob, and it was for his 75th birthday. And it was a 3-hour television show, which was just really wonderful. I mean, everybody was. Freddie Prinze was on it and committed suicide 2 or 3 days later.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a sad story. But the thing that you're referring to is Bob called me one day, and he said, "Somebody's asked me to do a hospital show up in Boise, Idaho." That's the city.
Okay.
And so, "Would you go with me?" And I said, "Sure, I'll go with you." So we went up there. I can't remember actually the performance, but I went back to my room after it was over, and my phone rang, and it was Bob, and he said, "I can't sleep. You want to take a walk?" I said, "Sure." So Bob Hope and I in Boise, Idaho at 11 o'clock at night, nobody's on the street, and here we are walking down the street, and we come across a building that has a white globe hanging in front of it, and it said police. And he said, "Let's go in and say hello to these guys." Well, can you imagine what happened to them? Bob Hope coming into the police station? Anyhow, that's what you remember, that story.
Pretty good.
I spent a wonderful amount of time with him. And
Yeah.
he lived in Toluca Lake, which is right next door to Burbank, where he was on NBC all the time. You know? And Tennessee Ernie Ford, remember him?
Sure.
He lived in the estate right next to him.
Okay.
Bob had his own little golf course on his property.
He's quite a character. Beautiful.
That was his theme. Thanks for the memory.
Yeah. He lived to be over 100, didn't he?
He made it over 100, absolutely. And so did Dolores.
Really?
And so did George Burns.
Yes, he did. And you were a big
Well, no.
contributor to the George Burns.
Well,
tribute.
in a sense. I was with Anne Margaret.
Yeah.
George Burns discovered Anne Margaret.
Okay.
So we went out to do George Burns' 100th birthday. Now, I had just moved from California to Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
My family arrived at 10 o'clock at night on January 15th.
Mm-hmm.
10 o'clock the next morning, I was on an airplane going out to play George Burns' 100th birthday with Ann Margaret.
Wow.
So, and he couldn't be there because even though he made it to 100 and just about, he had a fall in the shower and hurt himself, so he wasn't able to come. But we videotaped it, and Ann Margaret took it over to his house. Ann Margaret is a dear, dear soul. Everybody should know her.
How is she doing? Did you tell me recently that she's in ill health?
No, her husband is.
Her husband, Roger.
Her husband, Roger Smith, was one of the stars of 77 Sunset Strip.
Sure.
Yeah. But he gave up his career to build a career for Ann Margaret. He was the ultimate producer. He was wonderful.
He produced her show.
Oh, yeah, all the way through.
And you were the music director.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I get you a shower?
A towel would be nice. Please, another song.
Okay, another song. Do you know the name of this one?
I Remember You.
Good, thank you.
Finally had to get one. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. How much more time do we have? 5 more minutes?
Do you know that
Five more.
do you know that nobody's in this studio right now?
No.
No one's here. This is all being done remotely.
From?
Who knows?
You're on Mars. We're doing this from Mars.
Thank you for asking me to come here today, Harry.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. I think this show needed to
This
be
is
done.
a lovely little studio. It's really nice.
A couple of more questions.
Yes.
You've been in the business now 80-something years? 76 years?
Somewhere around that, yeah. I'm older.
Well,
I was born at a very young age, though.
in a log cabin? Was there ever a time in your musical career where you felt that it wasn't going right for you? Was there ever a time where you thought, maybe I should be doing something else?
Very simple answer to that.
Yeah,
When some of the bills came in and I couldn't pay them,
yeah.
okay? But, you know, I did what I had to do. And I am very incredibly blessed
Yeah.
with the things that have been part of my life in music. Because just like the book says, my life in music, music's been so important to me.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I had that. My mother was very gracious and wonderful about making sure that she took me to symphony concerts. So I had a classical training up until I was about 12 years old. Excuse me. Then I became interested in orchestration. I was kind of influenced by Glenn Miller. I became interested in the orchestra, the jazz orchestra, you know. And that's when I started to write, and that's where it went from there, you know.
Incredible. Did you have mentors when you were a kid? Was there guys who helped you along?
No, not too much. Just my parents were. I think they were kind of disappointed when I graduated from high school. I graduated when I was 17 years old. My birthday is in March, and I graduated in June. And I was offered a job, a summer job in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, with a small band. And I went down there, and when I came back, I took my entrance exams at Juilliard. And I was awarded a partial scholarship. And when it came time for me to go in and perform and do my piano thing, I heard somebody in that room playing far better than I thought I could, and I walked out of the building. And that day, I was offered my first job with an orchestra. So I went home and I talked to my parents, and I said, I know that I'm going to be drafted when I'm 18 because it was World War II. And I said, I think I'd rather start my career than interrupt schooling. So I never got to college, never got to a university. I made the world my university because I traveled so much, you know. And so I'm really grateful that I had that background from my parents and everything, you know. And I did actually, on my 18th birthday, I was at the Golden Gate Theater in San Francisco, and I had to walk around the corner to an office building, and I went in and signed up for the draft. Story you'd like also. We continued that tour going up through Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and we had a trumpet player that was leaving the orchestra. So the orchestra leader's name was Ted Fiorito, and Ted came to me and said, I want you to meet some friends that are out here tonight. They're very nice people. And he introduced me to Dr. and Mrs. Severinsen. And Doc Severinsen was the young man that joined the band. And I was the youngest one in the orchestra until he showed up. And he's 3 months younger than I. And he's still playing. And he had the orchestra on the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson Show. Incredible player.
Yeah, he is.
Is that enough stories for you for
You've
today?
led such an amazing life, Mr. Trenner.
Well, I'm so grateful that my memory's as good as it is, you know.
Well, I'm glad it is too.
Where am I? Oh, yeah, I know.
Ward C, I think we're on.
We have a
Ward C.
Milford in Connecticut, but it's a lot closer. Thank you, Harry. Thank you for inviting me.
If I had to have a third cousin twice removed, I'm awfully glad.
What does
to
that
see
mean?
I don't know.
I never.
You'll have to ask
You
Dr.
always say
Steve.
that. I'm a third cousin twice removed. Why did they remove you?
I don't understand a word of it.
I don't understand
But it was
that at
your
all.
friend, Dr. Steve Allen Jr., who ascertained that.
That's right. He's going to be with me next week, Steve Allen Jr.
Give him a big hug for him.
I will, absolutely.
All right. I love you, dude.
Thank you. I
Thank
love
you.
you too.
Thanks, everybody, for another Jazz from the Combs. We'll see you next month with Bronek Zukanik in his trio.
Really?
You know Bronek?
Oh, he's a wonderful bass player.
You know Bronek?
I know him very well.
Oh, for God's
When I
sakes.
first came to town, I was using him quite a bit for dates in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be economically unfeasible
Yeah.
for him to come all the way down there with
Right.
the budget didn't allow it. He's a great player.
He is a wonderful
Oh,
human being,
please
too.
send him my love and apologies because I've not forgotten him.
Okay, I will.
just haven't used
I
it
will
very
write
much.
to him tonight, in
Oh,
fact.
yeah. Oh,
I'll
he's
do
a
that.
wonderful player.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us here at Jazz from the Combs. We'll see you next month. And once again, I want to
Well,
say thank you to the sponsor of tonight's show, the Mendon Upton Milford Town Crier. It's an event that happens twice a month. Take advantage of it. Good night, everybody. We'll
Thank
see
you,
you
everyone.
soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.